Hey, Big Fucking Dreamer. So pumped to be here with you today on the Big Fucking Dreams podcast. I don't know. I've had a really good morning. I worked out already, and I said to Chris, was like, it's so great when you get an early morning workout in. And I worked out at 9 a.m. and he was like, it's hardly early. And I was like, yes, you're right. But for me, that is an early morning workout. I also was on the phone with one of my clients today, and she wants to bring me into her organization. Basically, I'm creating this offer to tech companies, and it's all around resilience enablement because a lot of tech companies do training around sales enablement, but people hardly get trained on how to be resilient. And this is kind of what we're going to talk about today. But people often have imposter syndrome. They think that they have bad boundaries. They don't really know how to communicate. My client was like, I want you to come into my team. But now we're looking at something more on a global scale and how we could roll that out. But then she said to me, she was like, I want to introduce you to someone that is quite senior in enablement who looks after enablement for all the leaders in the organization. But also, I want to own this project. And I'm so fucking sick of people stealing my work. I want to be the one that goes to club. I want to be the one that gets recognized. So I don't want anyone to take this from me. And I've coached this client. She's been through life and work transformation. And I was just like, go off, bitch. Like, this is how I know you are like my client and that we're coaching together because she had really poor boundaries before. She was like a chronic people pleaser. She was full of self-doubt. And now she's showing up being like, whoever I'm bringing in, like, this is my project. This is my work. I don't want anyone to steal the thunder from me and I want to be recognized. I basically was like, this, I can so tell that you have coached with me and you have done this work. And now it's really embodied in the way that you're showing up. So that was just a super proud coaching moment, and it put me in the absolute best mood. Today, what we're going to be talking about is the challenges that I'm seeing right now in high performers. What often happens is that people's careers look really shiny, but they feel really shitty. So you might be working at a top company and everyone is like, oh my God, it's so amazing. Like your family thinks it's really amazing or your friends think it's really amazing. And you have a lot of pride in saying that you work there, but deep down, it feels really bad. I'm going to go over the top 3 challenges that I see and then really coming at me right now. And I've done a ton of research on this. I'm seeing this pop up in my group coaching courses and level 1 and level 2 of the life and work transformation when people first come to me, as well as when I go and consult with corporates and do work in there. I'm going to take you through how I actually address this, the 7-step method that I do with people to really get them out of these states. So I'm really excited to talk to you about that. And let's go achieve your big fucking dreams. Okay, so challenge 1, this is going to be relevant. And this is what I call the stagnant high performer. So you're successful, but your career doesn't feel good. And you know that this isn't really what you want to be doing. So you almost have golden handcuffs. You make a lot of money, but you're not really interested in what you're doing, and like it doesn't light you up with joy. There's something else that's out there that could be greater. You often feel bored at work. You don't feel challenged. And you feel like you're just kind of like doing things and plodding along. You're kind of stuck in procrastination. You don't really know what else is out there. Challenge 2 is burnout. And I see a lot of people, coming to me, they're burned out, but the boundaries really feel impossible. They feel like it's extremely hard to say something to people. They don't really have the language. Maybe you feel like I couldn't say something. I can't stand up for myself. I don't even know how. You're kind of just continually saying yes, like being super exhausted, not necessarily progressing forward. I call that the exhausted high performer. Then challenge number 3 that I think, and I call this the self-doubting high performer. If you're overthinking, you are a perfectionist, but you're full of self-doubt. So let's say you're in a team meeting and you say something and then the whole next day you're ruminating on how did that come off? Was that the right thing to say? You could maybe respond to a client email or and then be constantly second guessing yourself. There's a lot of like thinking about everything that you're experiencing, wondering if you're good enough. And some people can say, okay, I'm experiencing all 3 of these challenges. I'm experiencing only 1 or 2 of the challenges, but predominantly this is what I am seeing across the market right now. And solving these things is a little bit complex and nuanced because a lot of it has to deal with how you see yourself and and like really at the core, a lot of this is self-esteem work, which I don't really market because it's kind of more complex to say like, okay, I don't really like my job. Is that a reflection of self-esteem? I think when we strip it back, it is. But however, that's not something that's kind of you can really demonstrate quite easily. I came up with this 7-step method, and this is a method through my program, The Life and Work Transformation. They take everyone through, and it's really to get them to feel more confident, more empowered, and really create a life and career that feels as good as it looks. Because a lot of times people have careers that look really good, but they feel like absolute shit for so many reasons. So, how do we get people out of that? And I'm going to walk you through an overview of the 7 steps and kind of like give you a little bit of tidbits of how to do like each of them. Phase number 1, step number 1 is really about self-sabotage, and it's about ending self-sabotage. And I do this through internal family systems therapy. So, typically, what will happen in these situations, let's say people feel like they have poor boundaries or, they're constantly full of self-doubt. If you've listened to this podcast for a while, you'll know that IFS is my favorite method. If you're a client of mine, we'll have worked with IFS. So this is looking at what is the part of you that thinks that it's not good enough. Or I've been working with a lot of clients, perfectionists lately, and the perfectionists will almost cause analysis paralysis. So it's like they want to do something different. Let's say launch a podcast, let's say work on a new project, but their perfectionist thinks it has to be, if they want to launch a podcast, they have to have like 10 to 12 episodes recorded before. They have to have the exact perfect strategy before launching. So what we want to do there is understand, how has that part of you come to be? Where is that part of you from? And what does it need from you? Like it's a separate entity. You're asking that part, what do you need from me as the adult? So what do you need from me, like that perfectionist? And it might be a really young part of you. And it could be a part of you where your mom told you that nothing was ever good enough. Or maybe your sibling got a lot of the attention and they were the star. And then you kind of thought you had to compensate, or maybe your parents weren't really around and maybe one of your parents drank, maybe one of your parents was chronically ill, and you kind of were out there trying to overcompensate, and you did that through perfection. So you did that for of like things looking really good and appearing really good. Maybe that's how you got recognition or love. So typically you then want to ask the part, what does it need from you? And that's how you start soothing it. Really want to look at in phase 1, like where are you self-sabotaging? Where are the parts of you stopping you from living in the career that you want? So another one here is like people pleasing. A lot of people come to me and they're chronic people pleasers. And it's like, okay, why does that part of you think that you can't say no? When someone says, are you sure you can take on that project? Like, I can do it if you don't have capacity. And when you don't have capacity, you still say, it's no problem. Like, no, I'll do it. Don't worry about it. And then you're like, I'm fucking exhausted. Like, I'm burned out. I can't even do another thing, but you still say yes. So what does that part of you need? Why is it behaving like that? And how do we get it to stop behaving like that so that you can have more energy, spend more time on the things that you love? So that's really phase 1. Now, phase 2 is defining your ideal life. And so many people don't do this. So many people just go on to the next thing, on to the next thing. And they get in these organizations and they're like, okay, first I'm in SD, then I go into sales and I'll be a sales manager, then I'll be a VP. And they don't really stop to think, well, what is my ideal life? Where do I want to live? Do I want to work in a big company like this? What does my ideal salary look like? Maybe I want a slower pace of life. Maybe I want to completely work from home. Maybe I want to move to the mountains. And I think this for me, like in my ideal life, I really saw that I wanted to be writing. I wanted to be working on creative projects. I wanted to be public speaking and doing this exercise for me. And I do this once a year of like, okay, am I living my ideal life? And I do this through guiding people, usually through meditation. This is an exercise from Martha Beck. So it's looking at, okay, what is your ideal day? What is a perfect day in your ordinary life? But it's one that's absolutely perfect. And usually what happens is that people love the really simple things. I've done this exercise with so many people and guided through so many people in this process. And usually they say like, I'm waking up, I'm in a beautiful home, I can hear the waves, and, I'm going to work, I'm working for a few hours, I'm working out. And then it's like, I'm going, home with my partner or my family's around and we're connecting and we're having a big dinner, whatever it can be. But I've never once heard someone say, I hit quota, or I, made $1 million in revenue, or I was speaking on stage. Like, usually people yearn for something really simplistic, but we think that we need to get all of these accolades to be loved and recognized. At least that's usually the types of clients that I've coached with, and also how I used to be defaulting. So I'm taking people through this exercise in phase 2 to say, what is it that you actually really want, but not the part of you that thinks that you need to overachieve? Like, what is the real part of you, the simple soul in you yearn for? Really designing that and creating that map. I mean, that's the guiding principle for then what we want to get all the other phases for. If you don't really have a map to where you're going, but have a map to where you're going and what feels good, like what is your actual joy, then you're just kind of doing things like going on to the next thing, going for the next promotion, because that's kind of what society or capitalism tells you to do without thinking, is that really what I want? So that then brings us to phase 3, which is looking at your values and looking at your purpose. And values work is so integral because so many people don't actually know what their true values are. I take them through the process where it's not like you don't just pick through a list of words and say, what are these values? I look at, where do people spend their time? Where do they spend their money? I take them through a third-party exercise. Every single person is like, this was so illuminating. Where do you want to spend your time? Usually one or two things happen. People realize they are living by their values and they're like, okay, I've really designed this life that I'm living that feels really good. I'm actually not living by my values at all. 80% of my time is spent on work. I think, like, I say I'm a healthy person. I say I'm a spiritual person. I say I'm a family oriented person. I don't do anything. Like, I never work out. I'm like going from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. working without breaks. I don't even like eat lunch. Like, I'm constantly, I'm just kind of a workaholic, and I really need to do a whole evaluation. This is really crucial. And even I think of my own life, it was interesting. I want to go on this training, this certification that I wanted to do for a while, and it's in June and it's in Perth, and it's pricey. And this year I'm getting married, and a lot of my really close friends are in LA, and all of my bridesmaids are in the US. And if I were to do a bachelorette party, like, it would be in the States. Looking at where I spend my time and where I spend my money. And then I went back on values, and actually learning and development, those are two of my top values. Like, I love that. That is at the core of who I am. And a lot of people have connection as one of their top values. And of course, I value connection with my friends and family so much, but it's actually not one of my top values. Love is one of my top values, but that's more love for Chris in my relationship and how important he is to me and how important Apollo, our little dog, is to me in that family. But in terms of friendship and connection, like, that's just not one of my top values. And sometimes I've often felt like maybe it should be, do I spend this money on going to a bachelorette party, or do I go on this training in Perth with one of these coaches who I absolutely love, who I've worked with? Like, this is the training that I really think is going to take my business to the next level, but also I want to do it. Like, nothing is more fun to me than learning. And that if I could be like, all I want to do is get a PhD in creative writing. I got my master's a few years ago. If I could be a perpetual student, that would be my absolute dream job. That is just what lights me up. I love learning new concepts. Then I love creating programs about it. That is such a core value of mine. And I was going through this exercise in my head where, because I've done this deep values and intentional work, I just thought, no, this is what I want to do. I would rather go on this certification than go back to LA, and that's okay because that's my value. So if you don't know what your values are, then you often will be making decisions where you're second guessing yourself. One of the real challenges a high performer has is second guessing, overthinking. Knowing your values eliminates a lot of that. It can allow you to make these decisions and say, this is what really aligns for my life. That's phase 3, doing values work, and then also doing purpose work. A lot of people will often conflate purpose with their career and think that their career has to be their purpose. And that is 100% untrue. And so I think with the rise of Simon Sinek's TED Talks of Start with Why, and then his book Find Your Why, we've become a real purpose obsessed culture where we think that we're here to change the world. And I really like debunk that. And I teach a theory by Professor Bradley Wright. He also came on the podcast. a really amazing episode. I got a lot of amazing feedback. So if you haven't listened to that yet, it's your career doesn't have to be your purpose. It's a few episodes ago. So I definitely recommend that. Your purpose is something that, lights you up. And I go through a really intentional process to help people find that. What I have found in this section is mother have had huge breakthroughs where they have either said, I thought my purpose was to be a mother, and I don't think it is, and I often felt like shame around that, and this helped me to really come to terms with that and be okay with that. Or people have said, I've often felt shame that I think that my purpose was being a mother, but I've realized that that is my purpose. And I'm very comfortable with that. And it's almost like what this does in this phase of finding your values and defining your purpose, it makes you okay with who you really are. And it makes you feel like no matter what, I am who I am. And that's accepting. Build a core of self acceptance and of self trust to know that you're making the correct decisions that are right for you. Phase number 4 is then conscious career design. Basically, what happens with high performers is that they're highly competent people. They can do many things. And I've even found this in my own business is that I can do so many different things. But at one time, I'm like a leadership coach, I'm an executive coach, I'm a life coach. And it's really narrowing down on, okay, what is a match for my talents and interests and my skills? What is a career that lives by my values? Like, I have a client who's kind of going through this process where health and family are her top values, but she's a lawyer. Her hours are absolutely insane. She's expected to respond to Slack and be working at midnight or 1 a.m. or 2 a.m., and that's just the culture. That is a complete contradiction of her values. So we have to do the values work first to then start intentionally designing your career. Throughout all of this, you're taking practical steps to move toward it. So we almost make a map with conscious career design. I have a lot of clients right now currently in career exploration. And we do this through a bit of design thinking and prototyping where you're actually doing like low level, kind of like low risk prototyping. So, okay, I think I want to go into this type of work. What would it look like just to do a project in this type of work? Or what would it look like to kind of take one small action or even have one conversation with someone who's doing something similar? So we're really ideating, and this is for the stagnant high performer who thinks that they're really lost in their career. But this is also for the high performer who feels like they are burned out. And it's like, how do we make your career feel good? What does that mean in conscious career design? Does that mean taking on less projects? Does that mean saying no? Which then takes us to the next phase, which is defining your non-negotiables, really building on from the next one. What are you saying yes and what are you saying no to? Going back to that ideal life, if I want to be a really healthy person, that means I'm absolutely prioritizing going to the gym 4 or 5 times a week. What do you need in order to thrive? And then how do you set your life up so that you can actually execute that? Which then is the next phase, which is how to set boundaries without feeling like a bitch. So a lot of people don't actually know how to set boundaries and don't actually know how to communicate your needs. So I use a method, it's called nonviolent communication, and it's a really beautiful method. And at the core of it, it's letting people know who you truly are and what you truly need and creating a harmonious relationship. Because I don't want people just like going around being like, you get a boundary and you get a boundary and you get a boundary and kind of just like putting boundaries everywhere just because it's like I want people feeling really good in our relationship. And that's what we want to focus on. The thing on boundaries and communication, and so many people say, like, I need boundaries, but they don't really know what that means. The definition of a boundary is really like separation, and it's a wall, and it's a wall between me and you. As like a physical border, what it really comes down to is what are your actual needs? What is it that you need? Is it, I need time to be with my children for bath time. I need to be off at 5:30 p.m. so I could go to a Pilates class. I need to, start work at 9 a.m. so that I can take a walk with my dog before. Like, what is the actual need? And then a boundary is like, how do you communicate it? And a lot of people just don't have that language. So it was really important to me in this design to be giving people tangible tools. Like, I see this in therapy a lot. I'm self-aware. I know all these things, but I can't really take steps forward. I don't really know how to move forward or to progress. That's really not what I want in this. And phase 7, which is learning how to communicate your needs, it's all around nonviolent communication, and it's all around asking for your needs to be met. And I have seen so many clients transform in this method. I have seen clients quit their jobs, take trips around the world for a year, have better relationships with their partner. One of my clients, Emily, did an episode about how initially she felt like motherhood was a prison. This redefined her relationship with her daughter. I think people usually come to me for career, but then they get so much more where it's like, I've learned how to communicate with my partner better. I've learned how to be a more present mother. I've learned how to be a better boss. One of my clients is just going through a complete leadership transformation where she was like, I realized I was such a people pleaser at work, and that part of me was so strong. And I just really wanted people to like me. But through the program, I've stepped into a leader. I've let go. She came in extremely burned out, having gone through a whole burnout journey. And now she's just like, in her power. She's totally unrecognizable. She's a stronger leader. She's not rescuing her employees. Like, she's holding them to a high standard and having them deliver and challenging them when they're not. And whereas before she was just so afraid and wanting everyone to like her. Countless examples of people who have come in, you know, burned out, feeling so much self-doubt, and then just come out negotiating these big deals. Like, their bosses say to them, you're doing so much better at work. Their partner says to them, you're a completely different person. Their children say to them, like, I'm loving time with you so much more. Like, it's such a phenomenal foolproof method, and I'm really, really proud of it. If you are interested in I'm basically taking you through my entire program of the life and work transformation. I run this program and I've spoken about it a lot, but it has the potential and the capacity to change your life. So I've got two cohorts starting. One is starting May 1st, another one starting June 25th. You might be listening to this at another time though. And I run them. I launch different cohorts. I mean, it depends on the need. Right now, I'm launching one at 8 a.m. on Thursdays. That's one starting May 1st. And then I'm doing actually a night one because I was getting a lot of demand from the UK. So that's at 5 p.m. So if people are in India or the UK, or you can't do during work hours, that's for people in that bucket. So I'm really trying to make it as accessible to people wherever you are. But I've got a level 1 and a level 2 of the program. I'm in level 2 right now, and level 2 is so fun. I'm just absolutely loving level 2. If you're in the level 2 program, the magic that's happening. A lot of people have been coaching with me for a while. So this is kind of my more advanced accelerated students who have a really good understanding of their parts, and they're quite self-aware and really wanting to take everything to the next level and go deeper. We're looking at parts polarizations. We're looking at, it's kind of a lot of jargon that you might not know, but if you did level 1, you would understand it. Been so amazing to also see, because so many people said to me when the program ended, like, what's next? I want to continue with this. How do we do it? And that's why I designed level 2, and I'm going to be designing a level 3 next year, which is very exciting as well. So if you are interested in this, and if anything has resonated with you and you're like, I am stagnant in my career, I've got the golden handcuffs, or I'm burned out, or I'm constantly full of self-doubt, I want something more for your life. Like, this is the absolute method to do this, and your life and career will be unrecognizable. And sometimes even if you haven't made huge shifts by the end, like, I've had clients where it's like everything kind of still looks the same, but they feel completely different. And it's like, how much is that worth to you? How much is feeling good in your life actually worth? There's a link in the show notes to book a call. I think if we're out this week, like, you've got 1 week left before my next cohort starts, I would absolutely love to have a chat with you. I'm on all the calls as well, the sales calls. I thought about outsourcing it, but that's a part that I really actually enjoy in my business. Like, I love talking to people who are interested in the program. I love hearing their challenges. I love hearing where they want to go. And then I love putting them into life and work transformation and just seeing their lives totally transform. So, my big fucking dreamers, thank you so much for listening today. I will chat to you soon. I will see you on the podcast in 2 weeks, and I hope that you go achieve your big fucking dreams.